wanted to show you guys just that. I'm gonna go off this and you guys are gonna see my notes. So, 0 to Web 3, notes on valuable protocols or how not to get rugged. So that's borrowing from Peter Thiel's 0 to 1. He's a venture capitalist, created PayPal, and he talks about a lot of concepts that I've integrated into my tokenomics framework. So my name's Nate, I'm at Eat Sleep Crypto. I do tokenomics advisory and comment on the space, a lot of high-level insights, and also valuation frameworks for cryptocurrencies, which is developed into how to design valuable cryptocurrencies. So the first thing, yeah, it's let's do that. Okay, so first I want to go over, what I'll say is I'm not going to be giving financial advice today, but I do want to pacify some of the people who might have come out just to check out like what token should I buy or what's valuable, what's not. I'm going to give you guys a few pieces of advice on what not to do, what not to buy. First thing is, don't invest in what you don't understand. This is pretty much common sense, but a lot of people stepping into the crypto space have no familiarity with crypto. They don't know how blockchain works, and I would advise those people in general just to not invest until they're comfortable with the subject matter. So I'm not, for example, I'm not a fine art connoisseur. I'm not a gemologist. I wouldn't expect to get into those markets and tell you which diamond is more valuable than another. Second thing is don't use leverage. So if you are going into the crypto space, don't use, how many of you have been wrecked by BitMEX? Let me start there. Show of hands. Other people, okay, I've definitely been wrecked by BitMEX. Not a fun experience. This guy in the bottom right, he's a billionaire, and he owns this derivatives platform where you can bet against or for with multiples on your money, and if the volatility tends to take a lot of people out because crypto can go up 50%, down 50%, whatever, and then people lose all their money because they posted it as collateral. That's kind of how leverage works. I'd recommend not using any leverage for your investments at all. And the third thing I'm going to get to at the end, and we'll circle back around to this slide. 3 notes. Okay, Tokenomics 101, so the title of this event, that comes from a framework that I've built over the last 5 years, I guess, for tokenomics. But I'll start with what is tokenomics? How many people here know the word or knew the word tokenomics before coming? Show of hands. That's like half the room, at least. Okay, cool. How many of those people, keep your hands up, how many of you guys could know what tokenomics are? Okay, and how many of you would be comfortable explaining tokenomics, like in succinct? I will call on someone if you guys want. Okay, what is tokenomics?
So in terms of Web3 tokenomics, it's exactly like Web2, except it's basically a digital currency and also the financial model in which you can actually distribute that can basically build your business model, right? Mm-hmm. So it's a way for you to say, okay, so my business model is, let's say, open source can have this much, divisions and so on. So this really tokenomics will inform your business model in such a way that enable you to raise money and enable you to basically fund your operations and so on. But so basically that's I'd say high level. That's great. Yeah, that's great. So tokenomics, basically the distribution of your tokens, and informs your business model of your token and how you're capturing value, which is something we'll get into. And I would add on top of that it's also the dynamics of your token and how it's used. So I would define tokenomics really succinctly as the relationship between a token's use and its price. And that can involve the distribution, how much you're giving to founders, things like that, but it also involves how that token is used in a protocol and what the supply and demand do to that token over time because of how it's used. The importance of tokenomics to me is in identifying and creating what I call price floors. So there are prices that you can identify that coins will not sustainably trade below based on their use in commerce. So it's not that they won't dip below that temporarily, but the market will buy them back up. So I call that a price floor. We're going to be talking about those today. And all of this work has come out of 2 questions. So
The first question I started to ask was around 2017. I said, what makes a cryptocurrency valuable? We're in the middle of this speculative bubble that everybody's saying it's gonna go to zero, whatever. And I was asking, why is a cryptocurrency valuable? What drives price? And the second question grew out of that. About 3 years later, 2 years ago, I started to say, okay, I've got a pretty good handle on that answer, the first one, but how can I design something intentionally to be maximally valuable? And so I've come up with 3 principles of tokenomics that are going to basically inform the rest of this talk. This is for context of the rest of the talk. But the first thing is a token's protocol has to be valuable. You have to be creating something that's actually going to be useful in the real world. So that might mean, that includes, does my protocol need a blockchain, or does my business token, whatever it is, need a blockchain? It also includes, am I addressing a large market? Do I have a large TAM, total addressable market? Am I solving a big real world problem? The second one is tokens must capture value. So it's not enough to just create something valuable, you have to monetize that somehow. And in a business, that's by taking profit, but in tokens, we need a different system. So there are a few systems that I'm gonna go over today that capture value effectively. The third is that tokens should maximize what I call tokenomic leverage. So there's these mechanisms, these levers that you can put into a protocol that affect the price so that the token becomes maximally valuable. So starting with the first one, the idea that you have to build something valuable is getting to fundamental value. So a thing is valuable proportional to what it gets you. That's true of emotional payoffs. That's also true of physical things. It's true of investments. People value things because of what they get them. And so money is valuable because of what it buys. And there's an equation that's about 300 years old. It was first derived by John Stuart Mill, and then Adam Smith wrote about it in his work, and then Milton Friedman popularized this equation later. It's called the equation of exchange, and it's right there. It's actually MV equals PQ, but I've reorganized it because we're solving. Today I'm going to explain how to solve for the market cap, or the monetary base of a currency, to see how valuable it is intrinsically. So written down in the middle there, just kind of simple way to conceptualize this is the value of any currency supply is at least whatever the value of the stuff that it buys divided by the number of times each unit is used. So if that doesn't make sense now, it's hopefully going to in a sec. I'm going to go over this. We've got the variables broken down here. Basically, M, the monetary base, is equal to PQ, the value of all the stuff that a currency is buying, divided by the number of times each unit of that currency is used. So I want to go over a simple, super simple example here. Imagine you have $10,000 worth of stuff that you're buying with an imaginary currency Bitcash, right? So that, plugging that stuff into the equation, PQ is 10,000. So you have M, the monetary base, or market cap of a currency, is worth 10,000 divided by the number of times that each unit of currency changes hands. Because if you're using a Bitcash multiple times in a year, let's say, that coin is going to be factored in a couple times to this equation. That's the V number, it's velocity, the number of times that a unit of currency is used. And we get 10,000 divided by 5, it's $2,000. So that's the value of the market cap. That is the fair value, the price at which this currency cannot trade below based on its use in commerce. So imagine there are 20 Bitcash existing, right? So 2,000 divided by 20 gives us a price floor of $100. So that's how market cap, or that's how you can value a cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrencies get their value from use as a medium of exchange. That's one type of token that we see in the space, is a pure medium of exchange coin like Monero or Bitcoin Cash, Dash, what BTC used to be. Might ruffle some feathers there, sorry. The second principle of tokenomics is that value must be captured intentionally. So Peter Thiel has this concept of value capture in the business world. It's the idea that you could build a company that's very valuable on paper, but not generating a lot of profit. So you have to find a way to take profits as a business entity and as a token. You have to find a way to make the token valuable when people are using the protocol. Otherwise, your token is entirely speculative and will fall to near zero or whatever the market feels like appraising it at in a bear market.
Traditional example being Craigslist.
Craigslist?
Yeah, he uses Craigslist as an example in his
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. So
Craigslist produces a lot of value, but
exactly.
very little.
Yeah, that's a fantastic example. So Craigslist, as an example, is a really valuable site, but they don't monetize. Craigslist is just Craigslist.org. So they're nonprofit. They're not trying to make money. They're not trying to capture any value. They're just providing a lot of value, which can be great. Nothing wrong with nonprofits. But when you're trying to secure a protocol, you want that token to be valuable because the incentives depend on it in a lot of cases. So another example that Thiel used was the airline industry in 2012 had $160 billion in revenue. Google had $50 billion, and Google was 100 times more profitable than all of the airlines in the United States. So Google did a far better job at value capture. I'm going to talk a little bit about free open source and how value capture has been. Same idea as Craigslist. Craigslist is free. I don't think it's open source, but you guys being developers, a lot of developers here, people I'm sure are familiar with the open source movement. Crypto is an outgrowth of the free open source movement, and they had trouble monetizing, have had trouble monetizing, and still have trouble monetizing. So a couple examples of that. Linux, right? Linux was developed by Linus Torvalds. He developed it for free and showed everybody the code. So this is a competitor operating system to Windows and to Macs, but it's free. And so they had a hard time trying to convince people to pay to fund the development, and consequently they have a very customizable product, but not a very user-friendly product in most cases. So there's a couple, there's some downfalls with not capturing value. Android is another example. So Android phones are open source, but now they're owned by Google. Android basically is completely run by Google. So they've been captured as an entity by a business that is profiting on top of them. Compare that to iOS, which has a really sleek, great user interface phone. Again, not as customizable, but really valuable, and has created one of the most valuable companies in the world, Apple. Third example, Wikipedia versus Encyclopedia Britannica. So Wikipedia begs for donations. If everybody just gave $3 this one time, we'd never need to bother you again, but nobody does it because it's just not that valuable to them, even though the value of Wikipedia is self-evident. It's an incredible source of knowledge. Oh yeah, so WinRare, what's this? Yeah, so please purchase a WinRare license. Let's just X that out right there. So value capture in crypto, kind of similar. It's even worse actually, because most cryptocurrencies are relying on speculation for their price increases, because the people's use of the protocol is not tied to the price. So the goal of tokenomics is to tie the use of your protocol with the price appreciation. So work in supply and demand there so that the value of the token appreciates as more people use it. And that's important because it'll secure your protocol, right? People won't be able to, for example, reorganize your blockchain after sending $1 million worth of DAI off-chain and then redeeming it for the underlying Ethereum and having both. That's a simple example of the economic security that you can have with proper tokenomics and aligning all of the incentives like that. So principle number 2, value is captured intentionally. These mechanisms have to be designed in on purpose and rarely fall into place naturally. And that leads to these principles and these principles lead to sort of 3 types of shitcoins. There's the kind that don't meet principle 1, where you don't really need to use a blockchain, and there's not a large market demand for this coin or this protocol. So those kinds of shitcoins. there's the kind that are not actually used, and then there's the kind that don't capture any value because it was an afterthought or never intentional in the first place. And I have Field of Dreams here. I want to call this Kevin Costner syndrome, because if you build it, they will not come. And Zcash is right in the middle. Sorry, Zcash people. I think Zcash is great tech. It's a perfect example of great tech, but not really used for what it's intended. Okay, so here's what you guys came for. 99% of developers don't consider this, and it leads to this graph that I could explain everything through. So the idea here is that a cryptocurrency or token's price is a function of its fundamental value, that price that it won't trade below based on its use in commerce, or its use as whatever its valuation is for, whatever it's supposed to be used for, plus the speculative premium, which could be based on future returns, could be based on just the hype. And there are essentially 5 types of cryptocurrencies, or 5 types of valuation frameworks that you can use to value cryptocurrencies and give them this kind of price floor. The one we've been talking about is just a pure medium of exchange. That's a cryptocurrency. That's based on the equation of exchange in previous slides. So to go over this graph here, I've got a bunch of logos. They're probably familiar to you guys, and I'm going to start in the bottom left with coins that have a low speculative price premium and a low fundamental value. So this is where the tokenomics are not aligned. They were not thought of at all. Tokenomics was not coined as a term when bottom left Prime Coin was incepted. This was like 2014 maybe, 2013, could be earlier. But Prime Coin was Bitcoin that mined prime numbers. Really cool concept, cool tech. But there was no way to monetize that, or people didn't monetize it within the protocol. Maybe if they had done something like some kind of revealing scheme where they gave the prime number to the person who mined it or to the highest bidder, they could have implemented proper tokenomics in Prime Coin. But as it stands, it's got a low fundamental value and a low speculative price premium, so Prime Coin is worth almost $0 today. Just above that, that's the logo for Augur. It's a prediction market, and it's a really cool idea, right? Prediction markets are incredible. I know that's a big thing in Ethereum. We're at ETH SD meetup. So prediction markets, a lot of you guys are gonna be like, yeah, that's awesome. Rep was issued as a governance token, and you were able to, and still are able to, stake Rep or bet Rep for a prediction market, or you could use Ethereum. Which one do you think people are gonna use? So Rep made this terrible mistake of giving their currency no real use except governance of the protocol, which is a topic for another day. Don't do pure governance tokens, they're awful. But above that, a little higher on the speculative price premium part of the graph is Optimism. So Optimism just dropped their token. I checked a few days ago. I don't know what their token does. I haven't heard any good answers of what it's going to do. There's a couple pull requests or comments that people have made. But Optimism doesn't have a fundamental use in the protocol yet, so its price is entirely speculative. Might be used for gas fees, still not a lot of gas going through Optimism. So if we're looking at Optimism as a medium of exchange that's being used to pay for fees, that's a really small total addressable market, and a reason that we want Optimism to do more things, or at least maximize the value of fees, which hurts the user experience. That's something I'll get to again. Top left corner, Uniswap, really high price premium, just a governance token. There's not a lot of value in governance tokens. The value of controlling a protocol is, controlling a protocol is only interesting to people who want to capture the protocol or people who want to subvert it. So Uniswap and its token being a pure governance token, it's safe for now because it has a lot of speculative buffer built in, but it's dangerous to have a token that governs a protocol like that isn't fundamentally valuable and in line with the protocol's use. I'm going to whip through the second column here, but you see Aave and Compound on the bottom. They're low price, low speculative price premium because they're just governance tokens. Same phenomenon I was just talking about that And above that, you've got Filecoin. Filecoin's cool, but paying for data service, like data distribution, it's not that big of a total addressable market. It's like Amazon Web Services. It's big, but it's not as big as it could be if you needed it to stake it or required as collateral or things like that. Above that is Chainlink. This is definitely going to piss some people off, but Chainlink could be so valuable. Imagine you require 7 or 10 times the value of Chainlink for them to adjudicate a contract. So to settle a contract based on Chainlink, let's say it's the score of the Yankees-Red Sox game, and you require 7 times the value that someone is betting on that game to be staked in Chainlink as a requirement to arbitrate that contract, you have a very valuable token. So that's why Chainlink is not hugely fundamentally valuable. Going through these last couple, Brave, basic attention token, has probably a lot of speculative price premium built into it. It's not used too much as far as I can tell. People are not really getting paid to watch ads as much as Brave envisions, but it's a decent business model because advertising revenue, like we talked about with Google, is very profitable. Sushi Swap, let's go back. Sushi Swap below that. So Sushi Swap is a really neat case. They forked Uniswap and started giving dividends from the protocol to the holders. And that's a great way to align investor incentives. Unfortunately, it's illegal, but fortunately for Sushi Swap, their team is anonymous. I think Nomi got doxxed, I forget, but that is, there's a trilemma in tokenomics that I'll get to. Sushi solved it with what they did. And then bottom right is MakerDAO. Maker also pays dividends to the decentralized Federal Reserve Board that governs the DAI price. Won't get into that. But, and then top right is Synthetics, so the most speculative price premium, but a really high fundamental value. Synthetics requires 7.5 times collateral to mint synthetic assets. So if you want to mint an ounce of gold on a blockchain, you have to stake 7.5 times an ounce of gold in synthetics to create that. And that means the value, the price floor of synthetics is 7.5 times the value of all synthetic assets that are out there. So the 3 don'ts. The third don't is don't follow the hype. Hype is just speculation. This is for investors and also developers, or users and also developers. If you're getting your investment advice from Elon Musk, you're gonna get wrecked. So the other considerations here are that there's a trade-off between user experience, tokenomics, and legality. So like we were talking about with Uniswap, they're probably not classified as a security. I'm not a lawyer, I don't know this stuff, this isn't legal advice either. But Uniswap was one of those coins that opted not to monetize because it was illegal. So they have good user experience. They unfortunately don't have tokenomics, and it's because they couldn't get around the legal problem that Sushi inadvertently, or maybe advertently, got around by vampire swapping Uni. So all of these things are things that I work on and the people that I work with help with, and I loop them in where we need to give tokenomics advice to people that are developing their own tokens. And you guys can reach me at this. So I am on Twitter at EatSleepCrypto. I'm on everything at EatSleepCrypto, and my email is up there for you guys if you want to reach out. I'll be here, the rest of the night, and if you guys have any questions about tokenomics, I would be happy to answer them, and maybe I could open up the floor for some questions. Yeah. All right, we got a question back here.
Do you think we'll receive like vampire attacks with against your traditional companies?
That's a great question. That might foray into my first don't, which is don't invest in what you don't understand, and I'm not a business expert. But that I do think as Web3 progresses, that there will be forks against, or not vampire tax, not forks, but my mental model of Web 3 is as an evolution of Web 2. I think we saw Web 1 was user-hosted and user-generated content. Web 2 was user-generated, but still company-hosted content, or I messed that up. Web 1 is privately generated or for-profit generated content and hosted content. Web 2 is user-generated, still privately hosted. Web 3 is user-generated and hosted content. And I think that's going to give rise to a lot more monetization around protocols and not of the underlying business. So, for example, you could build a social media company with a shared backend. You could build a shared backend for several social media companies, all using the same data, but competing on front ends, the same way that you use different front ends for automatic market makers. So Sushi has their proprietary front end, but you can do it off-chain, or on-chain. You can do it on MetaMask. You can do it in a bunch of different ways. So I actually think as we go more into Web3, that traditional businesses are going to use shared backends, and the vampire swap potential is going to be built into the business model, where all businesses are going to be inherently competing because they're using the same underlying protocols there.
Kind of use case based. So in terms of choosing a token, right? So think about like a use case of like reward systems, right? There's a lot of people.
Of which systems?
Like a reward, like loyalty programs.
Oh, loyalty programs, yeah.
Many people like to like make it universal, right? So because they're siloed. So like thinking about that, like would it be better to use something like stablecoin, like dollar for dollar? Because obviously you want to get a point, and you want to buy a dollar, so you want to the value. Or should you just go and do the say inflationary, and say, well, they can get $1 today, and if they keep it for 3 days, they can get $3. So which better business model to follow?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've been thinking about this a lot lately, and I think the whole model of loyalty points needs upgrading to Web 3. So loyalty points are very like Web 1, Web 2. It's a model that's been around for a while. I think with NFTs, you have a new way to capture value and to monetize. So it's something I didn't go into, but the value of, I see loyalty points becoming social club NFTs, and you will have, for example, a local business has their own NFT that floats, free floating market price, and that gets them a discount on whatever the goods are. And the value of that NFT, that social club token, will be proportional to the value you can expect to get from the network. So that is the price floor, in essence, of an NFT like Bored Ape Yacht Club, which I won't say it's at its price floor. It's certainly not. That's all I'll say about that. But that's a slightly different model than loyalty points that fits the same purpose.
Gotcha, but in terms of stability though, like if I just say, I'm gonna go to Cheesecake Factory, get $10 as a stable coin, I should be able to go Double Juice and buy $10 worth of drink, right? So if there has to be stability within a day or two, because if I just walk away from, most people go to Cheesecake Factory because they think now, actually their token is a lot higher, but there has to be stable in a way. But then should you, as a company, create a stable token for this use case, and then and I'm also going to create another token for me, for my audience and so on. So use case based, that's kind of what I'm trying to get to. Should it make sense to have one token cross border with two?
Right. Yeah, you're asking about the best model for a loyalty points token, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I actually think loyalty points tokens are Web 2.0 and don't need a blockchain. So unless the companies are in competition with each other already and want to use the same loyalty points token, like Amex rewards or something, then I would recommend not using a loyalty points token at all. And instead of that, you could issue an NFT for your regulars at your business, if you're a coffee shop, let's say, and let that token accumulate value, accrue value over time based on the perks that it gets.
Gotcha.
More questions?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, what do you got?
Great presentation.
Thank you.
So part of the issue with tokenomics is that it's such a wide spectrum. You know, you have L1s, L2s, bridges, staking platforms, decentralized exchanges, NFT marketplaces. So it seemed like, you know, in your top right, you had Brave and synthetics, you know, derivatives, and decentralized YouTube. And you had, you know, Maker, which I guess could be described kind of as a lending platform, but I'm not sure. But I'm just wondering what, based on your top 3 don'ts, which of these categories do you think lend themselves to better tokenomics, whether it be L1s, L2s, decentralized exchanges, NFT marketplaces, or Oracle?
Yeah, that's a great question. So which type of protocol tends to have the best tokenomics?
Exactly.
It's the protocols that require collateralization. So collateralization is probably the best, what I call tokenomic lever. It's the way that you can increase the price of a token the best. And that's because you have to have a multiplier on the value that you're collateralizing. And if you're like synthetics, where you have millions of dollars coming in, where people want to mint synthetic assets so they can trade gold or oil on a blockchain, then you're capturing a lot of that value with that ratio, with that multiplier. You're not only capturing the value of the asset that you're collateralizing, you're collateralizing whatever the multiple is of your collateralization ratio. So that's why I think collateralization is the best kind of tokenomic lever that we have, and so those protocols tend to be valuable automatically. That said, you can do a lot of other things in different protocols that are not being done now that would increase the price of tokens astronomically.
Also, just what is your thoughts on basically as a start in that basically new business model tokenomics is creating inflation and deflation? Like, what is something say? Well, this is a use case based. Stick with that, or is there like what is your top 5 pointers? Let's say.
Top 5 pointers on.
Like, well, choose this right away, and if your use case satisfies us. So what are your thoughts in general, like the choice to go with?
Can you give me an example of like a protocol or if you were developing hypothetically something, what would that be and what?
Supply and demand, right? So when the supply basically when the demand increase, should the supply also extend? Just like Ethereum is actually inflation, which is they can print out a lot, versus Bitcoin is actually inflationary. So
yeah, I mean it depends on the use case, but I mean let's look at like Bitcoin is going to suffer security problems because they can't pay for the security that they need unless they inflate the token supply or have a massive fee market, which they're not on track for. And or they're captured, my personal favorite, and think this is going to happen, is they're captured by businesses like banks, potentially through the Lightning Network, other things, and their security will be subsidized. On the other hand, Monero has a tail emission, which just hit last week, and so they have opted to dampen the price a little bit to have that security long term. So the trade-off is between security and basically a user experience versus the tokenomics, because obviously issuing more of a coin is going to make the price go lower. That's technically worse tokenomics, but the user experience demands a tail emission, so you do that in this case, potentially.
Can you explain what a tail emission is?
Yeah, so a tail emission is there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins, allegedly. There will be a hypothetically infinite amount of Monero, but it's at a fixed rate. So there's now, I think, like 0.5 Monero issued every 30 seconds or every minute, something like that. So that's a tail emission.
Cool. What are your thoughts on the merge and EIP 1559 and these new tokenomic changes to?
Yeah, it's really tough to parse, and I think I'm only going to know for sure in retrospect, so I'll avoid speculating because I've already looked like a fool on Twitter asking these kinds of questions.
How do you just learn about each of these, like tokenomics? You dig in the docs on each one? Is how you do it?
Yeah, pretty much. Read the white papers and talk to the community. I like to talk to people a lot, so I just ask someone to explain the white paper to me. But sometimes when it's early, I have to dig into the white paper myself. There's also Masari is a good website that explains very succinctly what a token does, and if I can get a handle on what it's used for, then I have a pretty good idea of what the tokenomics are going to reflect.
So you care to give us like a position on the quadrants for Ethereum?
For sure, yeah. So as far as the quadrants, like what you want, so you definitely want to be on the right side. You want to have fundamental value. It doesn't really matter. There's not much that people can do right now to decrease the speculative price premium in their token, but for user experience's sake, you want the price to be the fundamental value, right? You don't want volatility more than the market would naturally generate. Ideally, tokens would have no volatility and no speculation built in. You want people to be able to use the token effectively without price swings that might affect their experience, their finances, or the security of your protocol. So ideally, you want to be in the bottom right, but for now, there's no way to eliminate speculative price premiums on cryptocurrencies that anyone has built.
I said you also advise to, like, in terms of, let's say, funding or allocation for a company who would like to go to the tokenomics.
Yeah.
Basically a developer, legal, EV advisory. What do you think? What would be like out of it? I know there's probably varied, like the number itself, but what do you think? Like I'm not ready to go there yet, and so on.
Yeah. So as far as token allocation, which is I think when people think of tokenomics, they think that it's about the allocation, and that's an afterthought for me, because if you can engineer the price of a token to be a certain level and you can basically guarantee that, not actually guarantee, not financial advice, but if you can basically guarantee that price, then what allocation you have for different people is a matter of internal dialogue. It's like between
I
investors.
meant like basically like allocation, like basically expenses for
Right.
to build your token.
Yes, and I would say that depends on what your model is and what your business does, and whether you're likely to run into legal issues and then pay the lawyers more, that kind of thing. So I would say it's an afterthought, but it's something that I do as a tokenomics advisor that I help people with, and we walk through the business model and all those things. So I'd be happy to help you with that if that's something that you need. One more question, and I'll just open up the floor. What do you got?
How do you analyze with your model if you're thinking about these price floors for things for tokens that have managed to build in a reflexive model, and basically as the token value spins up, then there's less of the token because they're doing buybacks and burns? I'm thinking particularly of Coldtown right
Okay.
now.
Yeah.
There's value in that because they're funding
Right.
projects, but they're personally doing buybacks and burns with the token as it goes up.
Yeah, that's a good question. So how do you model tokens that have a dynamic supply, basically? I would just model it as a change in supply over time, and you can model that out, project it, and then you see what the demand is for called down tokens, for example, and then model that out and see what that looks like. And then at any point in time, you might have a range of price floors based on the supply, but you can do a snapshot at any point in time where you say, if there are this many tokens and the demand for the DAO is X, then you can calculate the price floor of that token. All right, give it back to Chad.
I hope you guys learned a lot. We're here until, let's see what time it is. We're here till 8, and then we're doing food and drinks at Amplify just down the street. So if you guys want to hang out, hopefully there's still beers and stuff over there. Feel free. Nate's going to stick around. So if you want to open with questions, please do. And then if not, join us at Amplify at 8 p.m. Thanks, everyone.
Good to see you. I want to pick your brain, but 100 people are going to talk to you right now, so I'll talk to you.
No worries. It's been 6 months. There's no community. Trying to make the community. So we're trying to keep it pretty technical. Yeah, because I think that's done from like simple